Do you ever feel like people just don't get what you're trying to say? Like your words vanish into thin air? Or worse, they get misunderstood? Most of us face this every single day, whether at work, with friends, or even at home. Communication isn't just about talking, it's about being heard, being understood, and being respected. And the truth is, how you communicate shapes everything: your relationships, your opportunities, even how people see you. This video will show you exactly how to change that. You'll learn how to control your emotions so they don't control your words, how to think clearly so you speak with confidence, and how to handle tough conversations without stress. You'll discover how to truly listen, understand people's feelings, and create a connection that feels safe and natural. By the end of this video, you'll have practical steps you can start using right away to speak clearly, be heard, and leave an impact in every conversation. This isn't theory, this is real, everyday communication that will change the way people respond to you. Chapter 1. Understand your emotional patterns to communicate with steady control. Understanding emotional patterns is one of the most important steps in improving communication. Many people believe communication is only about speaking better or choosing better words. They overlook something that influences every message they send. That influence is their own emotional state. When a person does not understand what is happening inside them, their words come out in ways they later regret. Their tone shifts. Their reactions become stronger than needed. Their message sounds nothing like what they intended. This is why emotional awareness becomes a real turning point. Once a person understands what rises in them during a conversation, they gain steady control over their words, their tone, and their presence. Every human being carries emotional habits shaped by their upbringing, past conversations, past disappointments, and past victories. These habits appear again and again without them noticing. Someone might become defensive when they feel misunderstood. Someone might go silent when they feel judged. Someone might raise their voice when they feel ignored. Someone might rush their words when they feel nervous. These emotional patterns are not random, they follow a history. When a person begins to pay attention to these patterns, they gain the power to choose their response instead of reacting out of old emotional memory. Improving communication begins the moment a person becomes aware of what they feel before they speak. Many people speak from stress without knowing it. Some speak from fear without admitting it. Some speak from frustration they carried from an earlier situation. This creates confusion for the listener. The listener hears the words, but they also feel the emotional charge behind the words. Humans respond to the emotional tone more strongly than the actual sentence. So emotional awareness becomes a responsibility. A person who understands their emotions communicates in a way that feels steady, respectful, and clear. Their message reaches the listener without unnecessary noise. Every conversation has the power to build connection or create distance. Emotional awareness helps a person choose connection. When someone pays attention to the early signs of their own emotional shifts, they can guide themselves back to balance before speaking. A slight tightness in the chest, a faster heartbeat, a sudden urge to interrupt, a desire to withdraw, a short breath. These small signs appear seconds before a reaction. When someone learns to catch these signals, they can control the outcome of the conversation. This control does not suppress emotion. It manages it. It guides it. It shapes it. Many people grow up without learning emotional awareness. They learn how to read and write. They learn how to follow rules. They learn how to achieve goals, but they do not learn how to understand their emotional triggers. They enter adulthood with emotional reactions that were formed in childhood. These reactions run their communication. Understanding emotional patterns is the step where this control ends. This step allows a person to take ownership of their communication instead of letting old emotions speak for them. Steady control in communication does not mean a person becomes emotionless. It means they become grounded. Their words are not rushed. Their tone is not unpredictable. Their mind is not clouded. Their message is clear. People trust someone who communicates with emotional steadiness. Trust grows when the listener feels safe from sudden emotional swing. Trust grows when the speaker expresses themselves with honesty and calm strength. Trust grows when both people feel heard and respected. To gain this steady control, a person needs to study themselves the same way they would study a subject that matters. This study does not require books, it requires attention. It begins with noticing how emotions rise in different situations. When someone interrupts them, when someone disagrees with them, when someone criticizes them, when someone ignores them, when someone questions them. Each situation reveals a pattern. If a person pays attention, they begin to understand the emotion behind the reaction. They begin to understand why they respond the way they do. They begin to understand what they need to work on. A person who understands their emotional patterns becomes more patient in conversation. They do not jump to conclusions. They do not take everything personally. They do not create stories in their mind that are not true. They stay focused on the actual message. They stay focused on the other person's words. They stay focused on understanding rather than defending. This kind of communication makes every relationship healthier, whether with family, friends, partners, co-workers or strangers. Emotional awareness protects the quality of the connection. One of the strongest benefits of emotional understanding is the ability to express feelings without losing control. Many people avoid sharing their feelings because they fear conflict. Others share feelings in ways that create conflict. Emotional awareness solves both problems. When a person understands their emotions, they can express them clearly without attacking. They can explain what bothered them without raising the intensity. They can set boundaries without anger. They can share needs without pressure. This is the foundation of mature communication. A person who understands their emotional patterns also becomes better at listening. When someone listens with emotional balance, they do not prepare arguments in their mind. They do not judge the speaker. They do not rush to defend themselves. They allow the message to reach them fully. Listening becomes easier when emotions are steady. Listening becomes deeper. Listening becomes more respectful. And communication becomes more effective because real listening creates clarity. When the listener is calm inside, they hear what the other person truly means, not what their emotions interpret. Emotional awareness also helps in tense discussions. Conflict becomes easier to handle when both people understand their emotions. But even if only one person understands, the entire conversation becomes smoother. A single calm presence can reduce the intensity of the whole situation. That presence does not speak from anger. It does not speak from fear. It speaks from clarity, and clarity is powerful. Clarity guides the conversation back to reason. Clarity reduces misunderstandings. Clarity saves relationships from unnecessary damage. Many people avoid communication because they do not trust themselves emotionally. They fear they will say something wrong. They fear they will misinterpret the message. They fear they will react too strongly. Emotional understanding removes this fear. When a person knows their emotional patterns, they can predict their reactions. They can prepare. They can choose healthier response. They become someone who can enter difficult conversations with confidence. Steady emotional control creates a more peaceful inner life. A person who understands their emotional patterns does not carry tension from one conversation to another. They do not overthink every message. They do not replay arguments in their mind. They do not store resentment. They understand what triggered them. They address it, and they release it. This reduces stress. It improves sleep. It increases self-respect, and it strengthens communication as a daily skill. Communication is not only about speaking to others, it is also about speaking to oneself. Emotional awareness improves the inner dialogue. The person becomes more supportive of themselves. They become more understanding of their own struggle. This self-understanding reflects in how they speak to others. A person who speaks to themselves with clarity and care communicates with the world in the same way. True improvement begins when a person takes responsibility for their emotional pattern. They stop blaming others for every misunderstanding. They stop assuming intentions. They stop expecting people to read their mind. They focus on what they can control. They focus on the emotions that rise inside them. They focus on how they respond. This responsibility becomes empowering. It gives them power over their communication. It gives them power over their relationships. It gives them power over their growth. A person with emotional awareness communicates with confidence. They speak at a steady pace. They choose words that match the situation. They adjust their tone. They stay present. They create comfort for the listener. They create peace in the conversation. They create better outcomes in their interactions. And these outcomes build a stronger life. Improving communication begins with understanding oneself. When a person understands what they feel, they understand why they react the way they do. They understand how their emotions influence their words. They understand how their tone affects others. They understand how their presence shapes the conversation. And this understanding gives them steady control. This is the foundation. This is where real communication growth begins. This is where a person gains the power to speak with clarity, calm strength, and emotional intelligence. This is how communication skills rise to a higher level. This is how a person becomes someone who speaks with purpose and listens with respect. This is how they build connections that last. Chapter 2. Notice your inner thoughts to speak with real clarity. Speaking with real clarity begins long before words come out of your mouth. It begins in the quiet moments when you notice what is happening inside your own mind. Every person carries thoughts that move quickly. Some thoughts are helpful. Some thoughts are old habits. Some thoughts come from fear. Some come from doubt. Some come from past experiences that still influence the present. When a person does not pay attention to these thoughts, their communication becomes unclear. They speak with hesitation. They speak with confusion. They speak with unfinished intentions. This is why noticing your inner thoughts becomes a powerful step toward clearer and stronger communication. Most people never slow down long enough to see what is happening within them. They rush into conversations without knowing what they want to say. They respond without understanding what they actually feel. They try to explain something, but their own thoughts are mixed together. When a person becomes aware of their inner thoughts, they stop creating unnecessary confusion. They give themselves space to understand their message before delivering it. This gives their words direction. It gives their tone calmness. It gives their communication strength. A person's inner thoughts shape how they speak. When someone is filled with doubt, their sentences become unsure. When someone is carrying anger from earlier in the day, their tone becomes sharp. When someone fears misunderstanding, they speak too fast or add unnecessary details. Inner thoughts guide communication whether a person is aware of it or not. The real improvement begins when someone chooses to observe their thoughts instead of letting those thoughts run on their own. Noticing your inner thoughts does not require deep analysis or complicated techniques. It requires honest attention. Before entering a conversation, pause for a moment and ask yourself what you are thinking. Are you worried about being judged? Are you afraid of making a mistake? Are you confused about your own message? Are you trying to protect yourself from discomfort? These questions help you see what is happening inside. When you understand what you are thinking, you can choose how to express yourself. That choice leads to clear and confident communication. When a person notices their inner thoughts, they also stop rushing. Many people speak too quickly because their mind is full of unprocessed thoughts. They try to say everything at once. They lose direction. The listener gets confused. Everything becomes more complicated than it should be. When you slow down your thoughts, you slow down your words. You speak clearly. You speak with intention. You speak with a calm presence that people can easily follow. Clarity does not come from speaking more. It comes from thinking with purpose. When your mind is organized, your message becomes organized. When you understand your own thoughts, your listener understands your message. This is why communication becomes powerful when you take control of your inner thinking. You remove the noise. You remove the confusion. You remove the scattered ideas. You speak with structure. You speak with purpose. You speak with strength. Many misunderstandings come from thoughts that are never examined. For example, when someone enters a conversation, believing the other person will not listen, they speak defensively. They raise their tone. They interrupt. They react. But the problem did not start with the conversation. It started with their inner thought. When someone believes their message is not valuable, they soften their voice. They minimize their words. They apologize too much. Again, the issue began with a thought. When you change that thought, you change your communication. To notice your inner thoughts, you must be honest with yourself. Do not hide what you feel. Do not pretend you are thinking differently than you really are. Many people hide their thoughts even from themselves because they are uncomfortable facing them. But growth begins when you look directly at what is happening inside. If you notice that you often criticize yourself, acknowledge it. If you notice that you assume negative outcomes, acknowledge it. If you notice that you avoid speaking up because you fear conflict, acknowledge it. Awareness is the first step toward clarity. When you begin noticing your thoughts, you also gain insight into how they influence your behavior. If you think you will be ignored, you speak less. If you think you might be wrong, you hold back. If you think you are not prepared, you stumble through your message. These patterns continue until you interrupt them. By understanding the thoughts behind these actions, you begin to choose a different path. You begin to speak from clarity rather than doubt. You begin to express yourself with intention rather than fear. One of the strong benefits of noticing your inner thoughts is increased confidence. Confidence does not appear by accident. It grows when you understand what is happening inside you. When you know what you want to say and why you want to say it, your confidence rises. Your voice becomes steady. Your body language becomes relaxed. Your presence becomes stronger. The people listening feel that confidence. They respond with respect. They respond with interest. They respond with trust. Some people speak with frustration, not because the situation deserves frustration, but because their thoughts are disorganized. Their mind is filled with different concerns, and they try to express everything at once. This creates tension. When they learn to slow down and notice each thought separately, their communication becomes calmer. They choose their words with intention. They choose their tone with care. They choose their timing with patience. This creates a more effective and more peaceful communication experience. Noticing your inner thoughts also helps you understand what you genuinely mean. Many people say things they do not fully believe, simply because they feel pressured to respond quickly. They commit to things they do not want. They agree to ideas they do not support. They give explanations that are unclear. When you take a moment to understand your thoughts, you avoid unnecessary confusion. You express your true message. You communicate from a place of honesty. Speaking with real clarity requires a level of self-respect. You must believe your thoughts matter. You must believe your message deserves attention. You must believe your voice holds weight. When you notice your thoughts, you strengthen your connection to yourself. This connection empowers your communication. It helps you speak without hesitation. It helps you choose your words with confidence. It helps you stay calm even when the conversation becomes challenging. Observing your thoughts teaches you something important. Not every thought deserves your attention. Some thoughts rise from fear. Some rise from insecurity. Some rise from old stories that no longer reflect your current life. When you learn to separate useful thoughts from unhelpful ones, you free yourself from unnecessary emotional pressure. You choose which thoughts will shape your communication. You choose which thoughts will guide your message. This is what creates steady, clear communication. Speaking with clarity is not about being perfect. It is about being aware. It is about knowing yourself. It is about understanding what you think and why you think it. When you have this understanding, your communication becomes more grounded. People listen more close. People respond more openly. People
People feel safe sharing their thoughts with you because they sense your clarity. Inner clarity also gives you the ability to handle difficult conversations better. When someone speaks to you with tension, your internal response becomes your guide. If you notice your thoughts becoming defensive, you can pause. If you notice yourself preparing an argument, you can step back. If you notice your mind assuming the worst, you can challenge that assumption. This self-awareness keeps the conversation from turning into unnecessary conflict. You stay focused on the actual message. You stay grounded. You stay reasonable. This creates a healthier exchange. When you learn to notice your inner thoughts, your communication improves not just with others, but also with yourself. You speak to yourself with more clarity and compassion. You are no longer controlled by automatic reactions. You become more intentional. You develop a stronger inner voice. That inner voice guides your decisions, your actions, and your communication in a positive direction. Improvement begins with awareness. Awareness gives you control. Control gives you clarity. Clarity gives you confidence. Confidence gives you stronger communication. This process begins when you take responsibility for your inner world. The more you understand your thoughts, the more you understand your message. The more you understand your message, the more powerful your communication becomes. This transformation does not happen overnight, but every moment of awareness moves you forward. Every conversation becomes an opportunity to notice your thoughts. Every pause becomes a chance to choose clarity. Every interaction becomes a moment of growth. Over time, your communication becomes steady, confident, and clear, because you built it from the inside out. Speaking with clarity is not a skill you learn once. It is a daily practice. It is a choice to observe your thoughts instead of letting them run freely. It is a commitment to understanding yourself before you try to express yourself. This commitment gives you a voice that carries strength and honesty. It makes your communication meaningful and effective. It helps you build stronger connections and better relationships. When you notice your inner thoughts and guide them with intention, your words become something people trust and respect.
Chapter 3. Manage your stress levels to improve daily conversations. Stress affects the way a person speaks more than they realize. When stress rises, the mind becomes tight, the body becomes tense, and communication becomes more rushed, more defensive, and more unclear. Many daily conversations turn difficult, not because the topic is complex, but because the person speaking is overwhelmed inside. True improvement in communication begins when you learn how to manage your stress levels before, during, and after conversations. When stress becomes manageable, your communication becomes steady, warm, and sincere. People can feel when you're present, and they can feel when you're overwhelmed. Managing stress is not only a personal benefit, it's a communication advantage that changes the way people receive your message. Stress does not always show up loudly. Sometimes it hides in the form of short answers, quick tone shifts, forced smiles, or the desire to end the conversation as fast as possible. Sometimes it appears as impatience or loss of focus. A person might think they're speaking normally, but the listener senses tension. This tension creates distance. It stops genuine connection. It stops the flow of natural conversation. When you begin to notice how stress affects your communication, you learn how to adjust your approach and protect the quality of your interactions. Many people try to improve their communication by memorizing phrases or practicing scripts, while the real issue sits inside their mind and body. Stress blocks clarity. It blocks calmness. It blocks understanding. A stressed person listens less and reacts more. They speak without thinking, or they overthink so much that they say nothing meaningful at all. Managing stress brings you back into the moment. When you're present, you listen better. You observe more clearly. You choose your words more wisely. Your tone matches your intention. This presence transforms communication. Daily stress builds up from small things. There might be work pressure, unfinished tasks, personal worries, or old frustrations that you haven't released. These stress layers collect inside you and show up in the middle of your conversations. When someone asks a simple question, your response might feel heavier than the situation deserves. When someone shares their thoughts, you might react with less patience than usual. When someone needs your attention, you might feel drained before the conversation even starts. Most communication problems come from this build-up, not from the conversation itself. Managing stress starts with understanding what triggers it. Every person has patterns. Some people feel stressed when they feel rushed. Some feel stressed when they fear judgment. Some feel stressed when they feel unheard. Some feel stressed when they face uncertainty. When you understand what triggers your stress, you gain the ability to calm yourself before your stress controls the conversation. This awareness creates emotional stability. That stability makes your communication strong, balanced, and grounded. Many conversations go wrong because one person carries stress from a different situation. They take stress from work and bring it into their home. They take stress from personal frustration and bring it into their relationship. They take stress from thoughts about the future and bring it into the present moment. When you learn to separate situations and release stress before entering a new interaction, you protect the peace in your conversations. You speak from the moment, not from past tension. Stress can also make you misinterpret messages. When you're stressed, a neutral comment may feel like criticism. A simple question may feel like pressure. A misunderstanding may feel like disrespect. Without stress, the same messages feel normal, manageable, and easy to respond to. This is why managing your stress levels gives you a clearer view of what people are actually trying to say. It helps you listen without assuming the worst. It helps you respond without emotional shortcuts. It helps you see the conversation as it is, not as your stress makes it appear. A major part of communication is tone. Stress changes tone instantly. A person might not raise their voice, but the tension in their words tells the listener everything. People don't only hear your words, they feel the energy behind them. Stress produces an energy that others pick up quickly. When you manage stress, your tone becomes consistent. It becomes calm, steady, and respectful. People respond better to a steady tone because it makes them feel safe, heard, and understood. Managing stress also improves your ability to pause. Many people react quickly because stress creates urgency. They feel pressure to answer fast, to defend themselves, or to fill silence. This urgency leads to misunderstandings. A pause gives you a moment to breathe, to think, and to choose your response. A pause protects you from saying things you don't mean. A pause helps you listen with patience. A pause gives space for better communication. Stress tries to remove that space. Managing stress brings it back. Some people avoid certain conversations because they associate them with stress. They delay difficult talks. They avoid expressing needs. They stay quiet to keep the peace. But silence creates more stress over time. When you manage stress, you no longer fear communication. You approach conversations with clarity. You speak without feeling overwhelmed. You address challenges with calmness rather than avoidance. This builds healthier relationships and greater self-respect. Stress also affects your listening ability. When you are stressed, your mind is busy. You're thinking about what happened earlier, or what might happen later. You're trying to control multiple thoughts at once. This mental overload takes you away from the conversation. You hear the words, but you miss the meaning. You respond without truly understanding.
Managing stress brings your attention back to the person in front of you. With presence, you listen fully. You understand the details. You see the emotions behind the message. This level of listening improves every relationship you have. Good communication requires emotional space. Stress fills that space with noise. When you clear the noise, your message becomes meaningful. Your presence becomes comforting. Your interactions become enjoyable rather than draining. People feel relaxed when they speak to someone who is not constantly fighting in attention. The calmer you are, the calmer the conversation becomes. You set the energy. You set the tone. You set the pace. Stress affects body language too. When you're stressed, your shoulders tighten. Your eyes shift quickly. Your breathing shortens. Your posture becomes rigid. These signals tell others that you're not fully comfortable. People respond to body language even before they hear your words. When you manage stress, your body softens. You breathe naturally. You maintain steady eye contact. Your presence becomes open and inviting. People approach you more easily. They share more openly. They feel safe being themselves around you. Managing stress also improves your decision-making in conversations. You choose better words. You choose better timing. You choose better reactions. A stressed mind jumps to assumptions. A calm mind sees options. When you're not overwhelmed, you think clearly. You evaluate the situation accurately. You respond with intention. This makes your communication more effective and more mature. Daily conversations require emotional energy. Stress drains that energy quickly. To improve communication, you must learn how to recharge throughout the day. This may include taking short breaks, grounding yourself, breathing deeply, or stepping away for a moment before responding. Small habits protect your emotional balance. Emotional balance protects your communication. When you manage your stress levels, you also reduce unnecessary conflict. Many arguments grow from reactions that came from stress, not from the actual disagreement. When both people communicate without emotional pressure, solutions appear more easily. Understanding increases. Tension fades. Conversations become productive instead of painful. Relationships become stronger instead of strained. Managing stress helps you speak with honesty. Stress makes people hide their true feelings because they fear more tension. Calmness gives you the courage to express what you really mean. When you're not overwhelmed, you can communicate your needs, your boundaries, and your thoughts without fear. You speak with dignity and clarity. This honesty builds respect. It builds trust. It builds deeper connection. Stress also influences how you receive feedback. When you're overwhelmed, feedback feels like attack. When you're calm, feedback feels like information. A person who manages stress can learn from conversations instead of feeling threatened by them. This mindset elevates communication. It turns every conversation into an opportunity for growth. The way you speak to yourself also changes when you reduce stress. Self-talk becomes kinder. Your thoughts become more organized. Your emotional reactions become healthier. You communicate with yourself the same way you communicate with others. If you're patient with yourself, you speak more patiently to others. If you're understanding with yourself, you become understanding in conversations. Managing stress strengthens this inner dialogue, which strengthens every outer interaction. The real benefit of managing stress is freedom. Freedom to respond instead of react. Freedom to think clearly. Freedom to express your needs. Freedom to enjoy conversations. Freedom to build real connections. Stress limits communication. Calmness expands it. Improved communication becomes a natural result of a calmer mind and steady emotion. When you manage stress, You give yourself the ability to show up fully, listen deeply, and speak clearly. You stop letting tension guide your words. You stop letting pressure shape your tone. You speak from clarity, from presence, and from balance. This is how daily conversations change. This is how relationships grow. This is how communication becomes a powerful tool in your life. Managing your stress levels is not only about feeling better inside. It is about improving the way you show up for every conversation, every connection, and every moment that requires your voice.
Chapter 4. Build your self-worth to express yourself without fear. When you try to speak and the words don't come out the way you hoped, it's easy to think your problem is vocabulary or technique. But most of the time, the real challenge sits deeper. It's how you see yourself. It's the quiet opinions you hold about your own value. And when that value feels low, every conversation becomes a place where you feel exposed, unsure, or worried about saying the wrong thing. Building your self-worth is not just about feeling good inside. It's about giving yourself the inner strength to express your thoughts without shrinking, without avoiding, and without hiding behind silence. When you strengthen how you see yourself, your voice changes, your presence changes. People feel it, and they respond to it. There's a moment when you begin to realize that every time you hesitate to speak, it's not because you're incapable, it's because you're afraid that your words won't be enough. That fear doesn't come from other people, it comes from the way you quietly measure yourself. Maybe you spent years thinking your ideas weren't important. Maybe someone made you feel small when you were younger. Maybe you learned to stay silent because silence felt safer than judgment. Whatever the story is, it shaped the way you communicate today, and unless you update that story, your voice will always feel restricted. Self-worth is the permission you give yourself to speak freely, to share your mind, and to take up space. When you start working on your self-worth, the first thing you notice is how often you stop yourself from expressing your thoughts. You feel the desire to speak, but something inside pulls you back. That pull is not weakness. It's old conditioning. It's the part of you that tries to protect you from embarrassment or rejection. But protection can become a cage when you never question it. When you raise your self-worth, you stop believing that every conversation is a test. You stop thinking that people are looking for faults in you. You stop imagining that your message must be perfect. You understand that communication is simply two human beings exchanging ideas, nothing more. That mental shift alone gives you a different kind of ease when you speak. Every time you build your self-worth, you strengthen your inner foundation, and when the foundation gets stronger, fear loses its grip. You don't second-guess every sentence. You don't replay conversations in your head, wondering if you should have said something differently. You don't feel pressured to impress. You simply show up as yourself, and that is where confidence truly begins. Confidence is not loudness. Confidence is not pretending to be someone you're not. Confidence is the calm belief that who you are is enough, and that your voice deserves to be heard. Think about the times you felt small while speaking. Maybe your voice shook. Maybe you rushed through your words. Maybe you avoided eye contact. Those signs didn't appear because you lacked skill. They appeared because you didn't feel grounded inside. When self-worth rises, your body language naturally changes. Your tone becomes steadier. Your posture improves without you forcing it. You breathe more comfortably. You don't feel the urge to shrink or apologize for taking space. You speak in a way that reflects inner balance instead of inner tension. People listen not because you're louder, but because you're rooted. You also begin to notice that your self-worth affects the way you interpret others. When you doubt yourself, you assume people are judging you. You imagine criticism even when none exists. You walk into conversations thinking you must prove something. But when you respect your own value,
You stop assuming the worst. You listen without fear. You speak without pressure. You don't rush to fill silence. You're not afraid of pauses. You understand that conversation is not a performance, it's participation. And participation becomes easier when you no longer feel like you're defending your right to speak. One of the strongest signs of healthy self-worth is the ability to express disagreement calmly. When you feel secure inside, you don't fear conflict. You don't avoid stating what you believe. You don't bend your opinions just to make others comfortable. You speak with honesty because you trust your own judgment. You can handle misunderstandings without collapsing internally. You don't over-explain yourself to earn approval. You don't feel the need to convince everyone. You share your point, you stay open to theirs, and you allow the conversation to have its natural flow. When your worth is solid, your voice becomes steady even when the topic is uncomfortable. Another part of building self-worth is learning to stop apologizing for existing. People with low self-worth over-apologize because they feel like they're causing inconvenience simply by speaking. That habit weakens your communication. It makes your words sound less certain. When you strengthen your value, you speak directly, you speak clearly. You don't soften your message out of fear. You don't hide your needs behind vague statements. You communicate in a way that shows respect for yourself and respect for others. That balance creates real connection. A strong sense of worth also helps you handle the feeling of being misunderstood. When your self-worth is low, being misunderstood feels like rejection. It feels personal. It feels like a sign that something is wrong with you. But when your worth is high, you realize misunderstandings are normal. They happen even among people who care about each other. You don't panic. You don't shut down. You simply explain again with patience, and that patience makes communication smoother for everyone involved. You also gain the ability to speak without needing constant reassurance. People with low self-worth often look for reactions while speaking, approval, nods, agreement, anything that makes them feel accepted. But that dependence disconnects you from your own message. When your worth grows, you speak because your thoughts matter to you, not because you need someone to validate them. Ironically, that independence makes you more persuasive. People listen to those who speak from inner conviction, not insecurity. Building self-worth is not about inflating your ego. It's about removing the belief that you are less than others. When that belief fades, you stop comparing yourself. You stop thinking others are naturally better speakers. You stop placing people on pedestals. You start seeing everyone as equal human beings with their own doubts and fears. That realization dissolves intimidation. It gives you room to breathe. It gives you space to express yourself without pressure. You also learn to be kinder to yourself when you make mistakes while speaking. Everyone stumbles. Everyone forgets words. Everyone loses their train of thought. But people with low self-worth treat these moments like proof that they shouldn't speak at all. When your worth rises, you treat mistakes as normal. You smile. You continue. You adjust. You don't punish yourself for being human. This creates a relaxed communication style people enjoy listening to. Self-worth also influences how clearly you express your ideas. When you trust yourself, you don't hide behind long explanations. You don't overcomplicate your message. You don't try to sound impressive. You speak in a way that reflects who you are. You choose simple words because you care about being understood, not admired. And that clarity is what makes people connect with you. Another important part of self-worth is giving yourself permission to speak even if you're not perfect. Many people wait until they feel flawless before they express themselves, but perfection is not a requirement for communication. Being present is, being sincere is, being honest is. When you accept your imperfections, you free your voice from pressure, and that freedom brings natural confidence. You also start setting healthier boundaries when your self-worth rises. You don't let others speak over you. You don't allow yourself to be dismissed. You don't tolerate communication patterns that make you feel small. Instead, you express your needs calmly. You speak up when something doesn't sit right with you. You hold your space without aggression. That ability comes from knowing your value and knowing that your voice matters. As your self-worth grows, you begin to take more chances in conversation. You ask more questions. You share more stories. You express more opinions. You participate instead of observing from the background. People see that openness and they feel comfortable opening up too. Communication becomes fulfilling instead of stressful. In the end, building your self-worth transforms the way you express yourself because it removes the fear that blocks your voice. It teaches you to trust your mind, to trust your experiences, and to trust your right to be heard. When you respect yourself, your communication reflects that respect. You speak with steadiness, clarity, warmth, and sincerity, and people respond to you with the same. Your voice carries weight not because you force it, but because you finally believe in the person behind the voice.
Chapter 5. Recognize your biases to listen with an open mind. When you sit across from someone and listen, you often believe you're hearing the full truth of what they're saying. But most of the time, you're hearing a version filtered through your own beliefs, experiences, fears, assumptions, and personal history. You're not just listening to their words, you're listening through your own mind. That's why recognizing your biases becomes essential if you want to listen with real openness. Bias is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's simply your mind's autopilot. It's a way your brain tries to save time by jumping to clue instead of taking a moment to understand what's really being said. But when you're unaware of these hidden filters, they quietly interfere with your conversations. They create misunderstandings, unnecessary tension, and judgments that never needed to be there. And when your goal is to communicate better, nothing improves the process more than learning how to catch these biases in action. Every person grows up with certain beliefs that shape how they interpret the world. You learn these beliefs from the environment you were raised in. They come from your family, your surroundings, the people you admired, the moments that hurt you, and the moments that shaped you. Over time, these beliefs turn into automatic patterns. They influence how you interpret someone's tone, their choice of words, and even their silence. When you don't stop and notice these patterns, you end up hearing people based on what you expect from them, even if it has nothing to do with what they're actually saying. Recognizing your biases isn't about blaming yourself. It's about understanding how your mind works so you can stay open instead of reacting out of habit. Sometimes you hear a person speak and your mind finishes the sentence for them before they even get there. You assume you know their intentions, you decide what they meant, you pick a meaning based on past experiences rather than the moment in front of you. This creates an emotional wall between you and the other person. They feel unheard, and you feel frustrated without knowing why. When you slow down and remind yourself that you might not fully understand yet, the conversation shifts. You stop responding from instinct and start responding from awareness. That simple pause changes the entire atmosphere. It gives you room to hear the person, not your assumption of them. One common bias people overlook is the belief that their own perspective is the default perspective. You think your way of seeing the world is natural, and anyone who sees it differently must be confused or misguided. This bias shows up in small ways. Maybe you interrupt because you assume you already know the point. Maybe you dismiss a concern because you think it's not important. Maybe you grow impatient when someone explains something slowly because you feel they should speak the way you expect. When you recognize that you carry this bias, you begin to soften your approach. You give people space to express their thoughts in their own rhythm. You become more patient. You stop expecting everyone to think the way you do. That shift makes your listening feel safer and warmer to others, and they open up more easily. Another bias you might carry is the tendency to judge based on past interactions. If someone once upset you, your mind may assume they're going to do it again. If someone once seemed distant, You may label them as uninterested forever. But people are not fixed. They grow, they evolve, they change from one day to the next. When you allow old memories to shape new conversations, you rob yourself of the chance to see the person they are today. By noticing this bias, you permit yourself to listen with fresh ears. You give the present moment its own identity. You allow people to show up differently without holding them hostage to the past. There's also the bias that comes from fear. When you fear rejection, you might interpret neutral words as criticism. When you fear conflict, you may hear disagreement as disrespect. When you fear being judged, you may assume others are attacking you even when they're not. These emotional biases make conversations feel heavier than they need to be. They create tension where there shouldn't be any. When you recognize that your fear might be coloring someone's words, you create space to breathe before reacting. You remind yourself that the person may not be trying to harm you. They might simply be expressing themselves in their own honest way. And when you listen without fear pushing you, the meaning becomes clearer. One important thing to understand about bias is that it doesn't only affect what you hear, it affects what you pay attention to. You might focus on one small detail and ignore the rest. You might exaggerate a flaw and overlook the positive intention behind the message. You might get stuck on a single phrase and miss the deeper meaning the person is trying to convey. When you notice this tendency, you learn to step back and look at the whole picture, instead of being trapped by one emotional moment. You start to ask yourself whether you're reacting to the person or reacting to something inside you. This awareness helps you understand the difference between what's actually happening and what your mind is painting. You may also carry biases about what kind of people you naturally agree with or naturally dismiss. Maybe you listen more easily to someone who reminds you of yourself. Maybe you struggle to listen to someone whose energy, background or communication style feels unfamiliar. This isn't something to be ashamed of, it's a natural part of being human. But when you acknowledge this bias, you give yourself the chance to rise above it. You choose to listen with genuine interest instead of automatic preference. You treat every voice with equal respect. And when you do that, you learn things you would never have learned otherwise. Another bias that often goes unnoticed is the desire to be right. When you want to be right, you stop listening to understand. You listen to defend. You listen to prepare your answer. You listen to protect your ego instead of connecting with the person. This creates a barrier that blocks real communication. When you recognize that this desire might be controlling your listening, you begin to let go of the need to win the conversation. You choose curiosity over pride. You ask more questions. You listen to the person's whole point before responding. You engage with the conversation instead of fighting against it. This not only improves your communication, but also reduces unnecessary conflict. When you learn to notice your biases, you also become less reactive. Instead of jumping to conclusions, you hold back long enough to let clarity form. This small act of pausing before reacting creates emotional maturity. It gives you the power to respond instead of rush. It helps you avoid saying things you regret later, and it gives the person speaking a chance to feel understood. When someone feels understood, they open up. They speak more honestly. They feel safer around you. That safety strengthens relationships, and strong relationships lead to better conversation. Recognizing your biases also helps you stay present. When your mind is crowded with assumptions, you're not fully listening. You're hearing the conversation through the stories you've already created. By acknowledging that these stories exist, you bring your attention back to the moment. You listen to the tone, the pace, the intention, and the emotion behind the words. This presence allows you to understand not just what the person is saying, but why they're saying it. And when you understand the why, your response becomes more thoughtful, more respectful, and more aligned with the situation. As you work on this awareness,
something powerful begins to happen. Your conversations become calmer. You don't take everything personal. You don't feel the need to argue every point. You don't misunderstand people as often. You see things more clearly. You give people more grace. And because you're no longer fighting your own assumptions, you have more mental space to actually listen. Another benefit of recognizing your biases is that you start asking better questions. When you're not trapped by assumptions, you become more curious. You ask the person what they mean instead of guessing. You invite them to explain more. You make them feel important by showing genuine interest. And when people feel important, they share more openly. Your conversations become richer, deeper, and more meaningful. Awareness of bias also helps you develop emotional balance. When you assume less, you react less. You don't jump to anger when someone speaks firmly. You don't get defensive when someone shares a concern. You don't feel insulted when the tone wasn't meant to offend you. Instead, you interpret things more accurately. This emotional steadiness makes you a more reliable communicator. People trust someone who stays balanced, especially during difficult conversations. The more you recognize your biases, the more compassionate you become. You realize that everyone has their own inner world, shaped by their own struggles and experience. You understand that people don't always speak perfectly. They don't always choose the right words. Sometimes they're tired. Sometimes they're stressed. Sometimes they're doing the best they can with the tools they have. When you see conversations from this human angle, you listen with patience instead of judgment. And that patience creates an atmosphere where real communication grows. In time, you begin to notice something surprising. As you become more open-minded, people feel more comfortable being honest with you. They don't hide their thoughts. They don't hold back their feelings. They sense your willingness to understand, not judge. That trust is one of the most powerful communication strengths you can build. Recognizing your biases doesn't mean eliminating them completely. It means staying alert enough to notice when they're influencing your listening. It means reminding yourself that your first interpretation might not be accurate. It means giving yourself room to rethink. That is how conversations become fair. That is how relationships become healthier. That is how misunderstandings decrease. When you listen with an open mind, you give both yourself and the other person a chance to grow. You learn more about them. You learn more about yourself. You discover new ideas. You strengthen connections. You make communication smoother and more meaningful. And the more open-minded you become, the more people want to talk to you. Because you've become someone who listens, not just with their ears, but with awareness, presence, and genuine understanding.
Chapter 6. Strengthen your presence to help others feel valued. Every conversation carries an energy that goes beyond words. People sense whether you are fully present or merely physically in the room. They notice when your mind drifts to other concerns, when your tone lacks attention, when your gestures feel disconnected. Strengthening your presence is about showing up completely, not just to speak, but to truly connect. It is about giving the other person the experience of being fully seen, heard, and respected. Presence is not something that can be faked. It is a skill you cultivate by aligning your mind, body, and voice to the moment. When you master this skill, people feel valued simply because you are there, fully attentive, fully engaged, and fully committed to the interaction. Many people underestimate how powerful presence is in everyday communication. You can have the clearest words, the most thoughtful ideas, and the best intentions, but without presence, your message loses impact. Presence communicates respect, attention, and empathy. It signals that the other person matters, that their time and thoughts are worthy of your focus. When someone feels valued, they open up naturally. They share more honestly. They listen more attentively. They engage more deeply. And all of this begins the moment you consciously bring your presence into the conversation. Presence is first built through self-awareness. You cannot be fully present with someone if your mind is consumed with distractions. Internal chatter, worries about the future, regrets about the past, or mental lists of what to say next. All of these pull you away from the present moment. Awareness allows you to notice these distractions without judgment and gently return your focus to the person in front of you. This practice may seem simple, but its effects on communication are profound. People notice when you are truly attentive, and they respond to that energy in a way that strengthens every relationship. Another key to presence is listening actively. Active listening is more than hearing words. It is noticing tone, pauses, and unspoken emotion. It is being curious about the meaning behind the words. It is responding not from habit or assumption, but from understanding. When you listen actively, you demonstrate that the other person's perspective is important. You give them the sense that their thoughts, feelings, and experiences have weight. Active listening requires energy, patience, and attention. When practiced consistently, it transforms ordinary conversations into moments of connection. Body language is a crucial component of presence. Your posture, gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact all communicate attention and care. Leaning slightly forward shows engagement. Maintaining comfortable eye contact signals respect. Nodding naturally conveys acknowledgement. Your body tells a story even before your words do. When your presence is strong, your gestures align with your message. Your energy signals that you are not just listening, but fully participating. People pick up on these cues instinctively, and they feel valued without a single word being spoken. Presence also grows from emotional regulation. When emotions run high, people either withdraw or react impulsively. Neither state conveys value to the other person. Strengthening presence requires noticing your emotions, understanding their source, and managing their expression. When you stay calm under pressure, your energy becomes steady, your tone remains measured. Your reactions are thoughtful instead of reactive. This steadiness allows the other person to feel safe, respected, and heard. Emotional stability enhances presence because it creates space for meaningful dialogue instead of defensive exchanges. Preparation can strengthen presence, but it is not the same as scripting. Preparing mentally for a conversation, understanding what you want to communicate, anticipating possible reactions, and clarifying your own thoughts creates confidence and focus. However, it must be paired with flexibility. Presence is not about delivering a rehearsed message, it is about responding authentically to the person in front of you. When preparation meets adaptability, your communication becomes both deliberate and responsive. People feel valued because you respond to their reality, not to a mental plan or agenda. Silence is a subtle yet powerful aspect of presence. Many people fear pauses, filling them with unnecessary words or explanations. But well-timed silence communicates attention and reflection. It shows that you are considering the other person's words seriously. It allows them space to continue speaking. It creates an environment of mutual respect and careful listening. When you harness silence skillfully, people feel that their contributions are honored and their voices matter. Presence is often measured by your willingness to embrace these pauses rather than rush through them. Presence also strengthens when you express genuine empathy. Understanding someone's perspective is not just about intellectual comprehension. It is about connecting to their feelings.
When you notice their emotions, respond appropriately, and validate their experience, you communicate that they are seen and heard. Empathy creates a bridge between people, allowing trust and openness to grow. This connection does not require agreement. It requires acknowledgement. By conveying empathy, your presence becomes more than just physical. It becomes emotional, relational, and deeply impactful. Energy management is another element of presence. People are sensitive to your energy level. If you arrive drained, distracted, or tense, the other person feels it immediately. Strengthening presence involves taking care of yourself so that you can give your full attention. Sleep, nutrition, physical activity, and mental breaks all contribute to the quality of your energy. When your energy is steady and aligned with your intention to be present, people respond positively. They feel the sincerity behind your words, and your communication gains a natural authority and warmth. Consistency is essential in building presence over time. One interaction where you are fully engaged can make an impression, but consistent presence reinforces trust and value. People begin to feel confident that whenever they interact with you, they will be seen and heard. Consistent presence builds reliability, deepens relationships, and encourages open dialogue. It communicates that valuing others is not situational or convenient. It is a reflection of who you are. This reliability enhances the impact of your communication on every level. Presence also involves eliminating unnecessary distractions. Multitasking during conversations, checking phones, glancing around the room, or letting your mind wander dilutes your attention. Even small distractions signal that the other person is not a priority. Strengthening presence means intentionally setting aside these interruptions. Giving someone your undivided attention signals that they matter, that their words matter, and that you are committed to the conversation. The effect is immediate and noticeable, fostering trust and engagement. Another dimension of presence is authenticity. People can sense when you are pretending to be someone you are not. Authentic presence involves showing up as you are, without masks or pretense. This vulnerability communicates respect for both yourself and the other person. It signals that you value honest exchange over superficial performance. Authenticity in presence encourages others to mirror that behavior, creating conversations that are rich, honest, and mutually respectful. It allows you to influence, inspire, and connect more effectively, because people trust the real you. Strengthening presence also means being adaptable to others' needs. Different people require different levels of engagement, tone, and pacing. Observing their cues and adjusting your presence accordingly shows that you respect their comfort and perspective. It demonstrates social intelligence and attentiveness, which are both vital for helping others feel valued. When you adjust naturally without forcing yourself, presence becomes seamless and fluid, enhancing both understanding and connection. Mindful attention to language also reinforces presence. Choosing words that are clear, considerate, and responsive to the other person's needs communicates thoughtfulness. Avoiding filler words, sarcasm, or dismissive expressions creates space for meaningful interaction. When your words align with your intent to value the other person, your presence is amplified. People sense the alignment between your inner focus and your verbal expression, which strengthens both clarity and connection. Physical awareness enhances presence as well. Standing or sitting with an open posture, moving naturally without abrupt gestures, and maintaining steady breathing signals attentiveness and calm. Small details like nodding when appropriate, leaning slightly forward, and maintaining balanced eye contact all contribute to a sense of engagement. These cues, combined with genuine attention, communicate to the other person that they are important and that their thoughts are being acknowledged. Presence is also strengthened by emotional receptivity. Allowing yourself to feel the emotions in a conversation without being consumed by them shows that you can process and respond thoughtfully. When people see that you are emotionally present, they feel safe to express themselves. This safety encourages honesty and transparency, creating an environment where communication is more productive and relationships grow stronger. Emotional presence is a signal that you value the person and the exchange beyond just the content of words. Another key factor is patience. Strong presence requires giving conversations the time they deserve. People feel rushed when you move too quickly or when you interrupt to steer the discussion toward your own agenda. Patience demonstrates respect for the pace and rhythm of the other person. It allows ideas to emerge naturally. It creates a calm atmosphere where people feel listened to and important. When patience is combined with attentiveness, presence becomes not just noticed, but deeply felt. Consistency in your inner state supports presence externally. When your thoughts are aligned, your emotions are stable, and your intentions are clear, your energy radiates calm focus. Presence is not about forcing attention. It is about being internally grounded, so that your engagement flows naturally. This internal alignment allows you to remain attentive even in challenging conversations, making others feel consistently valued and respected. Strengthening presence is a lifelong practice. Each interaction is an opportunity to cultivate awareness, empathy, attention, and energy. With dedication, your presence becomes natural, authentic, and magnetic. It enhances every aspect of your communication, creating trust, respect, and understanding. When others feel valued in your presence, they engage more openly, share more freely, and respond with sincerity. Presence transforms ordinary conversations into meaningful exchanges. It allows you to influence positively, connect deeply, and create a lasting impact simply by being fully, genuinely, and intentionally present.
Chapter 7. Reflect on your reactions to speak with calm purpose. Every word you speak carries energy shaped by the emotions you feel at that moment. Your reactions often precede your thoughts, especially in conversations that matter most. If you respond purely from instinct, fear, frustration, or excitement, your words can drift from your intention. Speaking with calm purpose is not about suppressing emotion. It is about understanding it before it dictates your words. Reflection is the key. When you take the time to observe your reactions, you gain insight into why you feel the way you do, and how it influences your communication. This awareness allows you to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. Your words gain weight because they are chosen consciously, not delivered by habit or immediate impulse. Most people fail to notice their own reactions. You might assume that how you feel is simply the natural outcome of a situation, but often your reactions are magnified by past experiences, unresolved stress, or unexamined beliefs. A comment that seems small can trigger disproportionate irritation if it touches on an old wound. A compliment may feel like pressure if it challenges insecurities you carry. Recognizing the source of your emotions is the first step towards speaking with calm purpose. Awareness allows you to disentangle the present moment from the ghosts of previous experiences, giving clarity to both your mind and your words. Reflection begins by pausing internally before responding. When a reaction arises, notice it without judgment. Label it "I feel defensive," "I feel anxious," or "I feel excited." This simple act of naming the emotion slows down the automatic rush to respond. It allows a brief moment of distance between feeling and action. With this distance, your mind becomes capable of evaluating the situation logically while honoring the emotional truth you are experiencing. You gain control over the tone, the content, and the impact of your words. Observing patterns in your reactions is also crucial. Certain triggers consistently provoke impatience, defensiveness, or frustration. By reflecting on these patterns, you begin to anticipate moments where calm is necessary. Preparation becomes natural because your self-awareness informs you before a situation escalates. For instance, if you recognize that criticism tends to make you defensive, you can consciously approach feedback conversations with intention. This preemptive reflection transforms interactions from reactive arguments into opportunities for constructive dialogue. Another layer of reflection is understanding your physical reactions. Your body reacts to emotions before your mind fully registers them. Your heartbeat accelerates, your muscles tense, your breathing may shorten, or your voice may tighten. Noticing these signals helps you recognize when your reaction is gaining momentum. By calming the body through slow breaths or subtle posture adjustments, you prevent physical tension from dictating your tone or pace. Calm purpose emerges from this synergy between body and mind, where awareness and regulation coexist. Emotional regulation is essential for speaking with intent. People often confuse suppressing emotion with managing emotion. Suppression buries feelings and creates tension that leaks out in unexpected ways. True regulation acknowledges emotion while choosing how to express it thoughtfully. Reflection allows you to ask, is this emotion guiding my words effectively, or is it steering me off course? By reflecting in this way, you reclaim control over your communication. You choose language, timing, and tone, rather than letting unexamined reactions dictate them. Reflection also helps you align your message with your values. Every conversation involves an unspoken purpose, whether it is to inform, persuade, encourage, or understand. Reacting without awareness can obscure that purpose, leading to confusion or unintended conflict. When you reflect, you anchor your words in intention. You make sure that even under stress, your communication reflects who you are and what you stand for. This alignment enhances clarity, credibility, and influence, making your interactions more meaningful and respectful. Listening deeply is another benefit of reflection. When your mind is preoccupied with your own reactions, you miss nuances in what the other person is saying. Reflection shifts your focus inward, allowing you to recognize the impulses that may compete with genuine listening. With that awareness, you can redirect attention toward understanding the speaker fully. Listening with this level of presence ensures that your responses are informed by comprehension rather than reactive judgment. The other person feels heard, which strengthens trust and connection. Reflection also encourages patience. Reacting impulsively often arises from a desire for instant resolution or validation. Taking time to reflect before responding gives space for measured, composed communication. Pausing allows ideas to mature in your mind before they leave your mouth. Words chosen in this state carry authority because they come from clarity rather than urgency. Patience transforms conversations from hurried exchanges into thoughtful engagements that leave lasting impressions. A reflective communicator also learns to reframe challenges. When conflict arises or tension increases, your initial reaction may be defensive or emotional. Reflection provides the ability to consider alternative perspectives. Instead of assuming attack, you may recognize misunderstanding. Instead of escalating, you may identify opportunity. This mindset reduces friction, fosters collaboration, and creates calm dialogue. Reflection equips you with the capacity to respond constructively rather than destructively, which transforms the quality of your interactions. Reflection enhances self-awareness about personal triggers. By keeping track of situations that evoke strong reactions, you can anticipate and prepare for similar conversations in the future. You notice not just what triggers you, but why it triggers you. Perhaps it connects to a fear, a value,
or an unmet need. This understanding allows you to manage future interactions with intentionality rather than emotion-driven impulses. With practice, reflection becomes a tool that consistently shapes communication toward calmness and purpose. Another aspect of reflection is evaluating past conversation. After interactions, consider how you reacted, what emotions were present, and what impact your words had. This post-conversation reflection is an opportunity to learn and grow. You identify patterns that may undermine your purpose or enhance it. Over time, this continuous feedback loop strengthens your ability to respond with deliberate calmness in all types of interactions. Self-reflection becomes a habit that refines your communication, ensuring that your reactions serve your goals rather than hinder them. Reflection also cultivates humility. Recognizing that your reactions are not always perfect encourages patience with yourself. You become less critical of mistakes and more committed to improve. This humility improves your communication because it reduces the need to dominate, defend, or control conversations. It allows for authentic dialogue where people feel respected and valued. Calm purpose is not arrogance. It is measured confidence built through awareness and self-reflection. Mindfulness is a key companion to reflection. Being present in each moment allows you to observe your reactions in real time. You notice when tension rises, when your thoughts spiral, or when your body prepares to react. Mindfulness integrates observation with breathing and grounding techniques to maintain calmness. As you practice this, you become capable of responding with intention rather than reacting automatically. Presence and reflection together create communication that is steady, attentive, and influential. Reflection enhances emotional resilience. Conversations often stir emotions unexpectedly. Without reflection, even minor provocation can lead to overreaction. With reflection, you gain the capacity to experience emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You learn to pause, evaluate, and respond in a way that maintains composure. Emotional resilience reinforces calm purpose because it ensures that your words are guided by reasoning and empathy rather than volatility. You also begin to recognize assumptions that color your reactions. Many reactions arise from incomplete information or preconception. Reflecting allows you to question these assumptions. Am I responding to reality or to my interpretation of it? This awareness prevents misunderstandings and unnecessary conflict. By speaking after reflection, your words are grounded in clarity and relevance, making communication more effective and harmonious. Reflection enhances intentional expression. You choose not only what to say, but also how and when to say it. Timing becomes deliberate. Tone becomes conscious. Your words gain weight because they are carefully considered. This deliberate expression ensures that you convey your message accurately while respecting the other person's perspective. Over time, this practice builds a reputation of reliability, calmness, and thoughtful communication. Another benefit is the cultivation of patience for silence. Reflection teaches that not all pauses require immediate filling. When you reflect, you understand that silence can serve purpose, give space, and convey thoughtfulness. Pauses allow others to contribute fully and allow your own words to carry more impact. Silence becomes an ally in speaking with calm purpose rather than a void to fear or fill hastily. Reflection fosters empathy by giving space to consider others' perspectives before responding. When you pause and reflect, you can ask, what might they be feeling? What might they be trying to communicate? This insight shifts responses from self-centered reactions to considerate engagement. Others feel understood, respected, and valued. Conversations become richer and more cooperative as a result. The habit of reflection transforms daily communication over time. It allows you to speak with authority, without aggression, with clarity, without rigidity, and with honesty, without hostility. By consistently observing your reactions, evaluating their source, and choosing your responses intentionally, you build the skill of communicating with calm purpose in every interaction, relationship, and discussion. Your words carry thoughtfulness, your tone carries steadiness, and your presence carries influence. Reflection is the bridge between emotion and expression, ensuring that every conversation is guided by awareness, clarity, and intentionality, rather than by reactive impulse. When you master reflection, you gain control over the energy you bring to each interaction. You speak not from compulsion, but from choice. Your words are measured, precise, and effective. Your voice becomes a tool for connection, rather than a channel for unchecked emotion. Through reflection, you transform every conversation into a platform for understanding, growth, and meaningful engagement. You learn that the power of communication is not only in what you say, but in how thoughtfully you respond, and in the calm purpose that underpins every word you deliver.
Chapter 8. Increase your empathy to create safer communication moments. Empathy is the cornerstone of meaningful communication because it allows you to step into another person's experience and respond in a way that fosters trust and understanding. Without empathy, even well-intentioned words can be misunderstood, dismissed, or ignored. Increasing your empathy is not simply about agreeing with someone or feeling sorry for them. It's about genuinely recognizing and appreciating their emotions, perspectives, and experiences. When you communicate with empathy, you create safe spaces where people feel respected, heard, and valued. These spaces encourage honesty, vulnerability, and collaboration. People naturally open up when they sense that the person they are speaking with is attentive, non-judgmental, and willing to understand, and that openness transforms ordinary interactions into powerful connective exchanges. Developing empathy begins with observation. Listening goes far beyond hearing words. It involves noticing tone, pacing, body language, and subtle cues that reveal unspoken emotions. Facial expressions, gestures, and micro-reactions carry meaning that words alone often cannot convey. By paying attention to these signals, you gain insight into what the other person is truly experiencing. Empathy is cultivated when you slow down enough to notice these details without rushing to interpret, judge, or offer solutions immediately. The practice of attentive observation builds a foundation where communication becomes richer and more connected because people feel truly seen. Another vital step in increasing empathy is active listening. Active listening is different from passive hearing because it requires full engagement with the speaker's words and intentions. It involves focusing entirely on the other person, resisting the urge to plan your response, and letting them speak without interruption. As you listen actively, your mind picks up nuances, emotional undertones, and intentions that might otherwise go unnoticed. Reflecting back what you hear in your own words helps confirm understanding and demonstrates that you value their perspective. This validation communicates safety and respect, signaling that the conversation is a space where the other person can be open without fear of judgment or dismissal. Empathy also demands curiosity. People communicate from their own frame of reference, shaped by their experiences, beliefs, and emotions. If you assume you already understand their experience, you close off the possibility of deeper connection. Curiosity invites questions that encourage exploration of feelings, motivations, and ideas. Asking with genuine interest, such as, "Can you tell me more about how that felt?" or "What was going through your mind at that moment?" shows that you care about their internal experience, not just the words being said. Curiosity opens doors to richer dialogue and helps create a safe environment for authentic expression. Emotional regulation plays a critical role in empathetic communication. When emotions run high, it becomes difficult to tune into another person's feelings because your own reactions dominate your attention. Strengthening empathy requires noticing your emotional responses without letting them interfere with your listening. If you feel irritation, defensiveness, or judgment arising, pausing to manage these emotions allows you to remain fully present. Calm awareness ensures that your responses are grounded in understanding rather than reactive impulses, reinforcing safety and trust in the communication moment. Perspective taking is a practical method for increasing empathy. This involves consciously imagining what it might be like to experience a situation from the other person's viewpoint. What pressures, fears, or hopes are shaping their choices? How might their history influence the way they respond? By taking their perspective seriously, you can temper judgments and respond with compassion rather than criticism. Perspective taking encourages connection because people recognize when someone truly attempts to see the world through their lens. It is a powerful tool for creating communication spaces where vulnerability and honesty are welcome. Empathy requires patience. People often communicate in ways that are slow, indirect, or fragmented, and impatience can close off understanding. Pausing to give someone the time and space to articulate their feelings conveys respect and safety. Silence can be a tool for empathy, allowing the speaker to process thoughts and emotions without feeling rushed. This deliberate pacing fosters trust and encourages deeper disclosure. Patience demonstrates that you value the other person's internal process and signals that you are present to understand, not simply to respond. Validation is another critical aspect of empathetic communication. When you acknowledge and name someone's emotions without judgment, you affirm their experience. Simple statements like, "I can see why that would upset you," or "It makes sense that you would feel that way," show that you recognize the legitimacy of their feeling. Validation does not require agreement or solving problems. It is the act of acknowledging and respecting the other person's reality. When people feel validated, they feel safer, more respected, and more willing to engage in honest dialogue. Nonverbal communication enhances empathetic connection. Eye contact, nodding, open posture, and gentle gestures communicate attention and understanding without words. People respond to these cues instinctively, sensing when you are emotionally and mentally present. Consistent nonverbal signals of engagement create an environment where individuals feel valued and secure, reinforcing the sense of safety that is crucial for open communication. The combination of verbal and nonverbal empathy strengthens trust and deepens relationships. Self-awareness complements empathy, recognizing your own biases, assumptions, and emotional triggers prevents them from interfering with your ability to understand others. When you notice that your reaction is influenced by personal experience rather than the other person's reality, you can set it aside and focus on listening with clarity. This reflective awareness ensures that your empathy is authentic and responsive, rather than distorted by your own filter. Being mindful of your internal state while interacting reinforces safety and strengthens connection. Empathy grows through curiosity about diverse perspectives. Engaging with people whose experiences differ from your own expands your capacity to understand others. Exposure to different viewpoints, cultures, and communication styles teaches adaptability and enhances your ability to connect meaningfully across boundaries. Every conversation becomes a chance to expand empathy muscles, to practice open-minded listening, and to respond with genuine consideration. This skill multiplies as you intentionally seek out diverse interactions in daily life. Empathy also involves adjusting your communication to meet the emotional state of the other person. Tone, pace, word choice, and level of directness all matter. Recognizing when someone is anxious, overwhelmed, or defensive allows you to moderate your approach to create comfort and trust. When communication feels safe, people are more willing to share openly, engage honestly, and explore solutions. Collaborative
Adapting in this way demonstrates attentiveness and reinforces the sense that the interaction is a shared, respectful space. Empathetic communication benefits from consistent presence. Being fully attentive in every conversation signals respect and consideration. Avoiding distractions, maintaining eye contact, and demonstrating genuine interest reinforce the emotional safety of the interaction. Presence conveys a message that the other person's thoughts and feelings are important to you, creating a context where empathy naturally flourishes. The steadiness of your attention allows the speaker to relax and engage without apprehension. Empathy also encourages humility. Recognizing that you cannot fully know another person's experience keeps you open, curious, and receptive. Humility allows you to ask clarifying questions, check assumptions, and listen without imposing judgment. People feel safer when they sense that you acknowledge their complexity and do not assume mastery over their internal world. This humility fosters deeper connection and encourages authentic sharing, laying the groundwork for safer, more productive communication. The practice of empathy strengthens problem-solving and conflict resolution. When you understand emotions, needs, and perspectives, you can respond in ways that address concerns constructively rather than escalating tension. Conversations become collaborative rather than combative. Solutions emerge more naturally because the focus shifts from winning arguments to understanding and finding mutually acceptable paths forward. Empathetic communication creates space for cooperation, trust, and meaningful outcomes. Empathy can also be cultivated through reflective listening. After hearing someone speak, repeating or paraphrasing their points shows that you understand and value their perspective. This practice not only reinforces clarity, but also demonstrates attentiveness and validation. Reflective listening ensures that misunderstandings are minimized and that the speaker feels genuinely acknowledged. It transforms simple dialogue into a meaningful, safety-enhancing interaction. Emotional attunement deepens empathetic communication. This involves sensing shifts in mood, energy, and engagement, and responding appropriately. Being attuned means recognizing when someone may need reassurance, encouragement, or space. Responding to these signals with sensitivity builds trust and strengthens relational bonds. The more skilled you become at emotional attunement, the more natural and impactful your empathetic communication becomes. Empathy also encourages resilience in conversations. People often share difficult experiences or sensitive emotions. Responding with understanding rather than defensiveness allows dialogue to continue without emotional collapse. By remaining steady and compassionate, you create an environment where challenges can be discussed openly, solutions can be explored collaboratively, and relationships can grow stronger through shared vulnerability. Safe communication is not just about avoiding harm, it is about creating opportunities for authentic connection, even in difficult moments. When you integrate empathy consistently, every conversation becomes an opportunity to create trust, understanding, and cooperation. People notice when you respond thoughtfully, validate their emotions, and remain attentive. These moments accumulate into a reputation of reliability and care. Your presence and communication begin to attract openness, honesty, and respect, reinforcing positive cycles of interaction. Increasing empathy is not a single act, but a lifelong practice that continually enhances the quality and depth of every conversation. Empathy transforms communication because it turns interactions into shared human experience. It shifts focus from speaking to understanding, from reacting to responding, and from assuming to listening. By cultivating observation, active listening, curiosity, patience, validation, self-awareness, presence, and humility, you create conversations that feel safe, valued, and meaningful. Empathy allows people to trust that their words and feelings matter. It ensures that every exchange is an opportunity to connect deeply, to understand fully, and to communicate in a way that honors both yourself and the other person.
Chapter 9. Track your social habits to change unhelpful behaviors. Every action we take, every word we speak, and every interaction we engage in creates patterns over time. These patterns shape who we are and how we communicate. Some of these patterns serve us well, opening doors, building connections, and strengthening relationships. Others, however, hold us back, creating misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and friction in social and professional spaces. Tracking your social habits is about becoming aware of these patterns so that you can consciously choose which behaviors to reinforce and which to change. It's not about judgment or self-criticism. It's about observation, awareness, and intentional growth. When you track your habits, you gain insight into what works, what doesn't, and how to evolve into a more effective communicator and socially aware individual. The first step in tracking social habits is observation. Pay attention to how you interact with different types of people in various settings. Notice your tendencies. Do you dominate conversations, withdraw when uncomfortable, or avoid speaking up entirely? Observe the tone of your voice, your body language, and your engagement level. Do you genuinely listen, or are you preoccupied with what you want to say next? Observation gives you the raw data of your social behavior, which is essential for meaningful change. Without awareness, your habits continue unconsciously, dictating interactions without your intentional guidance. Keeping a record of your social interactions can be an invaluable tool. Journaling or noting specific situations helps you identify recurring patterns. For example, you may notice that in group settings, you tend to speak less than you would like, or in stressful conversations, you interrupt or react defensively. By recording these observations, you create a tangible reference that allows for deeper analysis. Seeing your behavior in black and white removes the distortions that memory or emotion can create, and it allows you to confront patterns honestly. Tracking your habits turns vague feelings into concrete understanding, which is the foundation for change. Recognizing triggers is another crucial aspect of tracking social habits. Certain environments, topics, or individuals may consistently elicit specific behaviors from you. Perhaps you become anxious during meetings, sarcastic with a particular colleague, or overly agreeable with someone you fear might disagree. Identifying these triggers allows you to understand the underlying causes of your behavior. When you know what provokes unhelpful habits, you can implement strategies to manage your reactions, such as preparation, breathing techniques, or mental reframing. Awareness of triggers shifts your communication from reactive to deliberate. Self-reflection complements tracking. After observing and recording interactions, reflect on how your behaviors affected the outcomes. Did your habits enhance understanding, connection, and trust, or did they create distance, confusion, or tension? Reflection helps you understand the consequences of your actions and words. It also encourages accountability without self-criticism, focusing on improvement rather than shame. By analyzing the impact of your social habits, you learn what changes are necessary to communicate more effectively and build stronger relationships. Another key factor is evaluating patterns over time. Individual interactions may not reveal the full picture, but cumulative tracking shows trends that are otherwise invisible. You may notice that certain behaviors occur in cycles, such as withdrawing after criticism or becoming defensive in stressful discussions. Identifying these cycles allows you to anticipate them and intervene before they negatively affect communication. Patterns highlight both strengths and weaknesses, providing guidance for intentional growth in social skills and interaction strategies. Feedback from others is an essential complement to self-tracking. Sometimes your perception of your behavior differs from how others experience it. Seeking input from trusted friends, colleagues, or mentors can reveal blind spots and validate your observations. Feedback is most effective when approached with openness and curiosity rather than defensive. By combining self-tracking with external perspectives, you gain a more complete understanding of your social habits, enhancing your ability to make meaningful changes. Goal setting is a natural next step after tracking. Once you have a clear understanding of your behaviors and their effects, you can set specific, actionable goals for improvement. For example, you may aim to listen more actively, speak more confidently, or reduce interrupting others. Goals provide direction and motivation, ensuring that your efforts to change are deliberate and measurable. Tracking allows you to monitor progress toward these goals, reinforcing accountability and highlighting areas for continued focus. Consistency is critical in modifying social habits. Old patterns are deeply ingrained, and change requires repetition and reinforcement. By tracking your interactions daily or weekly, you create a feedback loop that allows you to observe incremental progress. Celebrating small victories reinforces positive behaviors, while noting challenges helps you adjust strategies without discouragement. Consistency ensures that improvements become ingrained habits rather than temporary adjustment. Awareness of social context is another dimension of tracking habits. Effective communication is situational. The way you interact in a casual conversation differs from a high-stakes negotiation or a professional meeting. Tracking your habits across different contexts allows you to recognize where adjustments are necessary. Perhaps you excel in personal conversations, but struggle in professional settings. Awareness of context ensures that your social skills are adaptable, relevant, and effective in all areas of life. Behavioral patterns often reflect internal beliefs and mindsets. By tracking habits, you may uncover limiting beliefs that influence how you interact. For instance, you might avoid asserting yourself because you fear rejection, or you may dominate conversations to mask insecurity. Identifying these underlying beliefs allows you to work on mindset shifts alongside behavior adjustment. Changing habits becomes more sustainable when it is coupled with internal transformation, creating lasting improvement in communication. Tracking also enables proactive behavior. When you know your tendencies, you can implement strategies in real time to adjust behavior. For instance, if you notice that you interrupt when anxious, you can practice pausing, breathing, and listening before responding. If you recognize a habit of over-explaining, you can prepare concise statements in advance. Proactive adjustments ensure that your interactions are intentional rather than dictated by unconscious patterns. Accountability partners can observe, remind, and encourage you as you practice new behaviors. This social support enhances motivation, helps maintain consistency, and ensures that the tracking process is not only but also action-oriented. Tracking also improves your ability to empathize. By observing your responses to others consistently, you learn how your behaviors impact them. You notice when your words cause tension, or when your presence encourages openness. This awareness allows you to adjust communication to create safer, more effective interactions. Habit tracking fosters relational intelligence because you begin to understand not only your own patterns, but also the dynamics of others around you. Technological tools can assist in tracking social habits. Simple journals, digital note-taking apps, or even voice recordings can help capture details of interactions for later reflection. Visualizing patterns over time can reveal trends and progress more clearly. Tools provide structure and organization, making the tracking process more practical and actionable. Regardless of the method, the key is consistency and honest observation. Reflection on tracked habits must focus on actionable insight. Identifying patterns is only useful if it leads to conscious change. After analyzing behavior, ask,
What adjustments will improve my communication? What strategies can I implement immediately? Which habits are non-productive and need to be replaced? This focus ensures that tracking becomes a tool for growth rather than merely a record of behavior. Breaking unhelpful habits requires small, deliberate actions. Attempting to overhaul behavior overnight is unrealistic and often discouraged. Tracking allows you to target specific behaviors incrementally. For instance, if you tend to avoid giving feedback, you can practice expressing one thoughtful observation per conversation. If you overtalk in meetings, you can set conscious pauses to invite others to contribute. Gradual, tracked changes compound over time into lasting behavioral transformation. Tracking social habits also promotes self-compassion. Change is challenging, and setbacks are inevitable. Observing patterns without harsh judgment allows you to learn from mistakes rather than being discouraged by them. Self-compassion ensures that the process of habit tracking remains constructive, sustaining motivation and resilience over the long term. A positive, growth-oriented mindset strengthens both self-awareness and communication effectiveness. Tracking helps you recognize positive habits to reinforce. Not all patterns need changing. Some behaviors already support effective communication. By noting instances of patience, active listening, clear expression, or empathy, you reinforce their recurrence. Recognizing strengths alongside areas for improvement creates a balanced perspective, motivating you to continue developing social skills comprehensively. Over time, consistent tracking and reflection reshape the way you communicate. You develop awareness of triggers, adaptability across contexts, and intentional behavior that aligns with your values. Your interactions become more thoughtful, empathetic, and effective. Relationships strengthen because people feel understood and respected. Tracking social habits is not merely about behavior change. It is about building a life of intentional, mindful, and influential communication. By monitoring, reflecting, and adjusting, you create a pathway toward mastery of your social interactions, ensuring that every conversation contributes positively to your personal and relational growth.
Chapter 10. Grow your emotional patience to handle tough talks wisely. Handling difficult conversations requires more than clear words or clever arguments. It demands emotional patience. Emotional patience is the ability to remain composed, attentive, and understanding when a conversation challenges your comfort, triggers intense feelings, or escalates tension. Without it, even the most intelligent points can be lost in a flurry of reactive responses. When you cultivate emotional patience, you create space for thoughtful dialogue, reduce misunderstandings, and guide conversations toward constructive outcomes. It is not about suppressing emotion or pretending to be unaffected. It is about recognizing your feelings, regulating them, and responding in ways that reflect calm wisdom and clarity. Emotional patience transforms challenging exchanges into opportunities for growth, understanding, and resolution. The first step in growing emotional patience is self-awareness. Recognizing the early signs of tension, frustration, or irritation allows you to intervene before these feelings escalate. Notice how your body reacts. Tightened muscles, increased heart rate, shallow breathing, or a tightening in your chest can all signal rising stress. Being aware of these physical cues gives you the chance to pause, breathe, and center yourself. Awareness of internal states is crucial because it provides the control needed to respond rather than react. Emotional patience begins with noticing what is happening within you before it spills out into your communication. Breathing techniques are a practical tool for building emotional patience. Deep, steady breaths calm the nervous system, slow racing thoughts, and create mental space for reflection. Intense conversations, pausing to breathe before responding allows you to choose your words deliberately. Breathing signals to your body and mind that urgency does not dictate action. It strengthens your capacity to listen attentively, think clearly, and respond with composure. Practicing these techniques regularly, even outside of conversations, builds a baseline of patience that becomes accessible in high-pressure moments. Listening is central to emotional patience. Often when a conversation becomes difficult, people focus on defending themselves or formulating responses while the other person speaks. Emotional patience shifts the focus from reaction to understanding. Active, attentive listening demonstrates that you value the other person's perspective, even when you disagree. Listening fully without interrupting allows you to absorb information, detect emotional cues, and respond thoughtfully. This practice not only diffuses tension, but also encourages the other person to communicate more openly, fostering collaboration rather than conflict. Reflection before responding is another pillar of emotional patience. When you feel the impulse to react immediately, pause and ask, "What is the best response right now, or how can I address this constructively?" Even brief reflection prevents impulsive remarks that can escalate tension. It allows your response to align with long-term goals, values, and the desired outcome of the conversation. Reflection transforms instinctive reactions into deliberate actions, ensuring that your communication is purposeful and effective. Empathy strengthens emotional patience by creating understanding for the other person's perspective. Recognizing that their words and actions come from their experiences, needs, and emotions reduces the likelihood of personal offense. Empathy allows you to maintain calm while responding because you see the situation through a lens broader than your immediate reaction. When both parties feel understood, difficult conversations lose their adversarial edge and move toward resolution. Empathy is a stabilizing force that balances your internal state with the dynamics of the conversation. Managing expectations is critical in tough conversations. Often frustration arises because reality does not match what you anticipate. People may respond differently than expected, misunderstand points, or react emotionally. By adjusting your expectations to accommodate the unpredictability of human interaction, you create room for patience. Understanding that not every conversation will proceed smoothly allows you to respond with flexibility, calmness, and clarity rather than irritation. Patience grows when you accept the reality of the situation without imposing rigid assumptions. Emotional regulation techniques support patient communication. Recognizing when your emotions are intensifying, you can employ strategies such as naming your feelings, grounding yourself, or mentally reframing the situation. For example, labeling a rising frustration as "I am noticing impatience" creates mental distance, reducing the intensity of the emotion. Reframing challenging remarks as opportunities for insight rather than attacks reduces defensiveness. These strategies give you control over emotional expression, ensuring that your responses maintain composure and intention. Body language is an important element of emotional patience. Remaining relaxed, maintaining open posture, and using calm gestures signal to the other person that the interaction is safe and constructive. Even when disagreement exists, steady body language communicates stability and attention. People instinctively respond to these cues, which can reduce tension and promote cooperative communication. Emotional patience is reinforced when your physical presence mirrors your internal calmness. Time management within conversations is another key factor. Difficult discussions often intensify when rushed or pressured. Allowing for pauses, breaks, or moments to collect thoughts helps maintain patience. You may choose to respond after a brief moment rather than immediately reacting, especially if emotions run high. Time provides clarity, reduces impulsivity, and allows thoughtful dialogue to take precedence over reactive exchanges. Patience flourishes when conversations are given the temporal space they require for constructive resolution. Preparation enhances emotional patience. Anticipating challenging topics, potential objections, or emotionally charged statements allows you to approach discussions with composure. Knowing your objectives and potential pitfalls reduces surprises that trigger reactive behavior.
Preparation does not mean scripting every word, but understanding the landscape of the conversation, your goals and your emotional triggers. Being prepared cultivates confidence, reduces stress and strengthens your ability to respond calmly and effectively. Mindset shifts are crucial for cultivating patience. Viewing difficult conversations as opportunities for growth, understanding, and relationship building changes your emotional response. Instead of approaching these exchanges with fear, defensiveness, or frustration, you approach them with curiosity, resilience, and openness. This perspective encourages listening, reflection, and thoughtful response, rather than impulsive reaction. Patience is amplified when you reframe challenges as part of personal and relational development. Self-compassion supports emotional patience. You may not always respond perfectly, and tension may arise despite your best effort. Treating yourself kindly and seeing each interaction as a learning opportunity reduces self-criticism and stress. When you are compassionate with yourself, it becomes easier to remain patient with others. Emotional patience grows from a foundation of understanding your limitations while committing to continual improvement. Emotional patience strengthens with practice over time. The more you intentionally engage in challenging conversations while maintaining composure, the more natural it becomes. Each experience offers lessons about triggers, effective strategies, and responses that work. With repeated practice, patience becomes a habitual part of your communication, allowing you to navigate even the most difficult discussions with poise and purpose. Growth is incremental, and consistent effort yields enduring results. Observing your mental dialogue enhances patience. Often, impatience stems from unexamined thoughts that amplify stress. Noticing mental narratives, such as, "This is unfair," or "I need to respond immediately," allows you to question and adjust them. Replacing reactive thoughts with intentional, goal-oriented reflections supports calm response. By managing your internal conversation, you influence your external communication positively, creating interactions that are measured, respectful, and constructive. Setting boundaries is essential in tough conversations. Emotional patience does not mean tolerating disrespect or abuse. Recognizing limits and calmly asserting them prevents emotional depletion and maintains focus on productive dialogue. Boundaries help you manage your energy, maintain clarity, and ensure that your patience is applied effectively rather than exploited. When boundaries are communicated calmly and respectfully, conversations remain safe and constructive for all parties. Active problem solving is enhanced by emotional patience. When you maintain composure, you can think critically, consider alternatives, and propose solutions without letting emotions cloud judgment. Patience provides clarity, enabling collaboration and mutual understanding rather than reactive conflict. This approach strengthens relationships and promotes outcomes that are beneficial for everyone involved. Difficult conversations become opportunities for solution-oriented dialogue rather than confrontational exchanges. Accountability reinforces the growth of emotional patience. Tracking your responses, reflecting on what went well, and noting areas for improvement creates a feedback loop for continuous learning. You become aware of triggers, successful strategies, and points for growth, enabling incremental development. Accountability transforms patience from an abstract concept into a practical, observable skill that improves over time with intention and effort. Practicing mindfulness complements emotional patience. Being present in the moment allows you to notice rising tension, recognize emotional cues, and respond thoughtfully. Mindfulness ensures that your attention remains focused on the conversation rather than spiraling into reactive thought patterns. By integrating awareness, attention, and deliberate response, you cultivate patience that is both internal and externally visible, enhancing communication effectiveness. Finally, emotional patience fosters trust and respect. When others see that you can handle difficult conversations with composure, they feel safer, more willing to engage openly, and more receptive to dialogue. This trust strengthens relationships, reduces conflict, and creates an environment where challenging topics can be addressed constructively. Growing emotional patience is not just a personal skill, it is a tool for creating positive, resilient, and meaningful connections with others. Through intentional awareness, reflection, regulation, empathy, preparation, and practice, emotional patience becomes an integral part of how you communicate. It transforms difficult talks from stressful encounters into opportunities for understanding, collaboration, and growth. By mastering emotional patience, you gain the ability to navigate tough conversations wisely, maintaining clarity, composure, and influence, and leaving both yourself and others feeling respected, heard, and valued.